form very, very quickly. You had to have something around it to catch the radiation instantaneously, or else you don't get anything. And yet the reporters that were there, with few exceptions, said almost nothing about this evidence. Now, here it is. For example, see, the evolutionary view is simply that indeed you've got the granite foundation, you've got a molten earth and so forth, and so the granites are forming deep in the earth and slowly cooling. But what we've just seen is a comparison now. Up top, the top part of our schematic up there, is that if we have radioactive decay plus slowly cooling molten granite, then indeed, radioactive decay meaning the rapid radioactive decay, slowly cooling granite, there are no halos. Nothing is going to be caught in the granite because it's all gone long before the rock actually formed into a solid. The second one, the second illustration, radioactive decay, rapid radioactive decay, instantly created cold granite. You know, it's just like a Polaroid. I could be up here tonight with a Polaroid camera, if they're still used these days, and we push the shutter, push the button, of course. The flash flashes light, and indeed it goes to the audience, comes back. Now, the shutter has got to be synchronized with that flash of light so that it opens and closes instantly, or at the same time, synchronized for it to come back and go back to the film. The film now records the object, the image of the light. Now, the film then is like the granite. The granite has to be there in a form so that it can capture the radiation. The radiation itself would be like the flash of light going out and coming back through the open shutter. There has to be a synchronization of the creation of the little tiny speck of radioactivity for that polonium halo has to be there along with the creation of what's around it, the granite rock, has to be done all together, has to be done instantaneously, or it's all over in just a very, very, very short period of time. The very fact of the matter is, the reason why you haven't heard of all this before, for all practical purposes, most of you, is because, look at this. Tested theories, go ahead, David.
Tested theories of science such as mechanics, electromagnetism, optics and light, nuclear physics and thermodynamics have all had their central assumptions validated experimentally in the laboratory thousands of times. False scientific theories are built upon central assumptions which have never been validated. They can masquerade for decades and even centuries before their falsities discovered. And of course, the perfect example of that is the astronomy of Ptolemy. How many knew from their 8th grade science class that there was once a time in Earth history where everyone, all scientists, anybody that had any interest in astronomy, knew that the Earth was at the center of the solar system, that the sun rotated around the Earth, that all of the planets rotated around the Earth, and built an elaborate mechanism which actually predicted, by the way, it predicted very well the planetary motions which were being observed at that time. For hundreds of years, planetary motion was very accurately predicted by the Ptolemaic model of the solar system, where the sun was rotating around the Earth. Now, don't you think that's interesting that such an obvious mistake could be believed and rebelieved and taught for hundreds of years until finally somebody came along called Copernicus and said, you know what? There's a more elegant model which also fits the data. And that more elegant model has the sun at the center of the solar system and the Earth rotating around the sun. Now that actually got him in hot water with what?
With the church, of all things, at that particular time. Let us emphasize what David is saying here. What we're basically saying here, we said the difference between true and false scientific theories is that the true will have its central assumption tested and validated, but the false ones, it can masquerade for a long, long period of time. If you don't test the central assumption here, as David has said, was that indeed the Earth was at the center and everything was revolving around, and so an explanation. Thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of observations were put in to support this Ptolemaic astronomy of the Earth being the center of the planetary system. But it was wrong. And the only reason it was found to be wrong is because Copernicus came along and he found that indeed the explanations of the planetary motion fit the sun being at the center and planetary motion then occurring around the sun, which we all believe. So what we're coming around to basically is saying that indeed one of the theories, so to speak, we want to call that scientifically, one of the theories we're talking about tonight, evolution, has never had its fundamental central assumption tested. And as a result of that, all sorts of erroneous predictions, so to speak, have occurred. A lot of many apparently good predictions have been fulfilled. People have focused on the good predictions that have been filled and say evolution has got to be true because we see this observation, this observation, this observation, it all fits evolution, so therefore it's got to be true. Well, the very fact of the matter is there are observations, which we'll bring to you tonight, that will show indeed fantastic contradictions, which we've already been talking about in part, the polonium halos, evidence of Earth's rapid creation that will never, ever fit the long age of granite cooling. And by this particular time, I think we possibly are coming to the time limit of our first presentation, but we want to look very carefully here. The question, David.
Which of the two has been masquerading as the scientific truth?
Now, when we say which of the two, we mean, is it creation or evolution? Which of these two has been masquerading? Go ahead.
Which of the two fits evolution? Which of the two fits creation? And what part do primordial polonium halos act in deciding the scientific answer?
I need to get an input from Tom as to where we are time-wise.
About 57 minutes.
57 minutes. All that means is we've got approximately 30 seconds or so. We're back to this primordial decay of primordial polonium as being something that affirms very, very clearly the fact that the polonium halo, something you can see visually in the microscope, was produced by something that just existed for a short period of time and disappeared, and yet there's an indelible record of it there in the rocks. And that is one of the polonium halos that occur in granites all over the world. So it's something that's a worldwide nature. It's something that David and I believe that indeed was created by God to help people to understand that when God said in the Bible, He spoke. By the word of the Lord were the heavens made, and all the host of them by the breath of His mouth, for He spake and it was done. He commanded and it stood fast. Every word in the Bible is true. Even the creation account given in Genesis, which we're going to have more on tomorrow evening. Thank you so much.